Laura, welcome to the Last Day podcast.
Thank you.
You have gone through something that it's hard for a lot of us to imagine. You lost your husband at 27 years old, and now 8 years later, you are navigating the current dating culture. I'm really curious to hear about your experiences and your journey through all that. And where I'd like to start is with Tom. How did you two meet?
We met, it feels like so long ago. I was a baby. We met through mutual friends. So we met, he was actually leaving. He was at the party because he was saying goodbye because he was leaving to go pursue a PhD in Washington State, actually. I was there. I was visiting my brother in town, and we just happened to be at the same house. And so we didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything of it. It came out that he thought I was dating my brother because we showed up together. And so he just assumed like, oh, they're together. They arrived together, whatever. And, 2 weeks later, fast forward, we're hanging out and he's there. And it turns out I found out later, he went to Washington State. He just didn't think it was a fit for him. And so he decided to come back and pursue something else. And I said it was because he met me, maybe subconsciously. And then the rest is history. Yeah, I think our first date was, I was training for a half marathon, and he was from the area, and he was like, oh, there's this really great park, like we should go and run. And we met and we walked the whole time and talked the whole time, and like the rest was history. So yeah.
Was this in Kentucky?
It was in Kentucky. Yeah. So thank you for asking. I haven't thought about that in a while. But yeah, I was young. I was 19 when we met. Yeah, so very, very young. And he was 4.5 years older than me. But yeah, he showed me how, he was like, oh, we'll go on a run. And it's like, no one's going to run on their first date, right? Or like, was it a date? I don't know. But we ended up walking and chatting and kind of, yeah.
Was it a fast spark or was it a slow burn over time?
I think it was, gosh, I haven't thought about it. This was so long ago. I think it was a little bit of both. I think I was about to graduate or thinking about kind of what was after undergrad. And I think it was slow and fast in the sense of like, I knew I was leaving to go to pharmacy school. So I pursued pharmacy school after my undergraduate degree. And I had some decisions to make. And like you were either, we were going to do it together or like we weren't. And so he was also in the process of buying a house. And so it was just kind of like conversations that had to happen in order for it to be realistic. And yeah, that's just, I think both things. It took some time and it was just very intentional from the beginning. So we had to keep that in mind. Yeah.
How did the relationship progress?
Oh, quickly. Yeah, quickly. And, you think about being from Kentucky, right? You get married young. Like that's it's very different in Austin. And maybe even in the time frame. But I think we dated for 9 months, and then we got engaged 9 months in, and then we were engaged for 9 months, and then we got married. So again, I think being intentional, everyone's always like, how long should I wait? What's the timeline? And it's like, that's so specific to where you're at in life, how you approach it, who you are, what you're looking for, what you want. And so for us, it worked. I don't think it was too fast. I think it gave us time to be married before I went into a really demanding program and kind of have some time under our belt before that happened. And then, it helped during pharmacy school to have someone there with me and like to be supportive through, classes and long hours and working on top of that. So yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So what were your favorite qualities about Tom?
Oh my gosh. He was just the best human. He was just fully who he was. And like, he didn't care. I love that. I think for a while I'm pretty outgoing, or I can be. My family's really outgoing and loud, and we say what we think. And he is the opposite of that. He is so quiet but if he spoke up, you needed to listen. So like, he was one of those people that if he spoke up, it brought a lot of value. Like, he's really thought about what he said. And he just didn't really care what anyone else thought. Like cargo shorts were his thing. Cargo shorts and chacos. Like that was back, when the chacos were a big thing. I don't know if that's ever the case in Austin. But I always joked like, oh great, you can hold all my things. You can just hold my stuff in your cargo shorts. I appreciate that.
That was nice of you to overlook the extra pockets.
Yeah. He was just the best human. Just so kind and so thoughtful, go with the flow, easygoing. He was well researched. Like he would send me things constantly of like, if he was going to make something, he would, or not make something, buy something, he would read all the articles, right? And like figure out what's the best. And he'd be like sending me things. And I'm like, I can't read this. Like, I trust you. You got it. But yeah, he was the best. Yeah.
He sounds very intellectual. You mentioned too that he was going to pursue a PhD. What was his educational background?
So he was history major.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, history major. Then he got his MBA, and then he was doing a PhD in social entrepreneurship. So that was around the time of like Tom's Shoes, things where it's like Tom's Shoes, like you buy one and they donate
Tom's.
one.
Yeah.
Shoes.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Where it was like the social entrepreneurship kind of avenue of like trying to create companies that are also going to promote like doing good within the world or helping, giving back. And so that's what he went to study. He ended up coming back and with his MBA, worked for Fruit of the Loom for a bit. Mm-hmm. So on the business side, and really struggled with like finding fulfillment in that, and ended up going back and did a non-traditional program for teaching, and he became a middle school math teacher.
Wow.
Yeah, so he taught like advanced student, like geometry, algebra, I think it's called math counts or math team, or I don't remember, it was so long ago, but he was like helping with the math like academic team. And
is math count, I think I remember math counts.
Yeah.
Is that the academic tournament where it's either you have to do all the things in your head or they're very difficult math problems?
I think it's both, and
okay.
Like the final round is like speed.
Okay.
So it's about like how quick, like who answers first. I think I attended one toward the end. It's very fun, but yeah, he was very mathematical, intellectual, and just, I'm sure, I never sat in on his classes, but I'm sure a great middle school math teacher. He tried to bring kind of the realistic things also to the classroom, so thinking through like navigating purchases and finances and things like that. I know he taught everyone in school like that he worked with his Excel skills. Like he had really good Excel skills, and at work when he was at Fruit of the Loom or in the classroom or with his like teachers, like other teachers he taught. They always were like, teach me how to use the cell. Like, teach me Excel. Can you show me? So that was really, that was him in a nutshell.
That's awesome.
I appreciate you asking that. I haven't thought about those things in a while. So it's nice to like reminisce and also like share about him. It feels like it's making him, putting him in the forefront of my memory and making him like a memory come to life. So thank you for that.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about something that definitely could be a little sensitive. The end of his life. Mm-hmm. And I want to know if you could share what your experience was during that period.
How much time you got? So I would like to preface it by saying, I'm trying to think how I would like to word this. It's hard to say like what my experience was at the end of his life, because I think the experience for people that kind of navigate loss or know that the end is inevitable, their experience starts way before the actual end of life. Mm-hmm. And so for me also to kind of emphasize, he passed away from cancer. So it was something where he was receiving treatment, and we kind of we chose like a hospice route towards the end of life. And so it was inevitable. It was coming, and I had some of that time to prepare, and that's not always the case, right? Some people pass away suddenly, and so the experience is very different. But for me, I had kind of a 9-month period of him getting like diagnosed, receiving treatment, and then the treatment not working, and ultimately like I would say him, but us choosing the hospice route. My experience was just surviving. Like I was just trying to get through, and I also have a healthcare lens, so I think that kind of made the experience a bit different. But I was just trying to understand what was going on, and also I was 27, and I was just trying to be a wife and a caregiver, and also protect like our relationship and dynamic, and also protect our day-to-day and like our normalcy, because I think one of the things that we craved the most was just we wanted our life back, and it was chaos. And if for anyone that's been through something traumatic or that whole experience, what tends to happen is it kind of escalates all the areas in your life, or kind of uncovers dynamics or things like it all just kind of happens at once. And so I was trying to take care of him as a wife, as a caregiver, right? And I think something in there shifts too, is like you kind of go from being a wife and thinking about emotional connection and physical connection more to the admin caregiver side. And like, that's something, if I really sit with myself and think about in the past of like, I think I could have done a better job of showing up as wife and not just focus so much on the caregiving. But I think part of that, and I've sat in therapy and I talk with friends, a lot of that was just survival, right? Of just knowing if I could just focus on the things that I had to do, then that would get us through the next day. And so a lot of my experience was shifting more towards that caregiver side, and then also thinking about what I would do if he passes, right? Like what, the journey and the process of thinking about what's next started way before he actually passed away, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is a possibility. How the heck would I survive? Like, what does that look like for me? We got married. I was 21. I wasn't fully an adult. I've been in school, and like he's taken care of me. And, it was just kind of this like realization of what would I do? Like, how would I make it through? And I think something in you shifts, whether it's thinking about the future or also just thinking about surviving your day to day. You kind of tend to disassociate or like compartmentalize from the emotional heaviness of it. And I had no idea. Like, and at the time it was 2016. We didn't talk about emotions and feelings and things like we see everyone talk about these days. Like, I didn't know what grief was. I didn't know what like loss felt like. I'd never thought about our attachment styles, or like how him and I connected, right? You just did. You didn't think about like your emotional needs, or, all of those buzzwords that we hear about today. It was just survival. And those things came as like in hindsight thought, like after. And I don't know. I just think, I think what I've come to terms with is that's normal. Like, as I've sat in therapy, as I've talked with people, as I'm still in the healthcare field, my brain and body and what I know about it was doing its best to protect me so that I could function in those moments. And if I maybe even allowed myself to go too much on the emotional side, or like I wouldn't have been able to provide the care that I did, or to handle the situations that I did in that time frame. So yeah, that was a long answer, but I was everywhere and nowhere,
Were you and Tom having conversations about what would come next?
We did, we definitely did toward the end. I remember his biggest concern was like, he just wanted to know I was taken care of. And we talked about that. I will tell you, to be so transparent, like, there's a lot that I don't remember. And, you could say that's time, which it could be. But I also think like it was just such an intense time that it's protective that I don't remember some of it. But yeah, we definitely talked about it. There was one conversation that I remember specifically where he said, I don't care if you're married tomorrow. Like, I don't care if you're married in 2 weeks. I don't care. I just want to know that you're going to be taken care of. And I think some of him holding on at the end was that, like, he just wanted me to be taken care of and was so, maybe, I don't know if he's worried. I think I can take care of I think he knew that would be fine, but I think it was just kind of his last stitch, like how kind he was. Just wanting to know that I would be taken care of. And to be so honest, and I can't believe I'm saying this on the podcast, I don't know that I would have been that way. I don't think I would have been that gentle and gracious and understanding. And I would have been like, absolutely not. No, like, absolutely not. And so just, again, to kind of go back to, like, who he was as a person, he modeled it to the very end of, like, this gentleness and this, like, he had this understanding of somehow what I was going through. I don't think I communicated it to him, but somehow he understood this dynamic of, like, what life was going to be like for me after. And he just did it in such a gracious and gentle way that it's such a gift. He was so encouraging, and that's never been something that I've had to, like, struggle with internally because of him.
Oh, that is such a gift. Can we jump into dating?
Sure.
So the first question I want to ask is, do you put that you're a widow on your online dating profile? I guess I should ask first, are you online dating?
I am not currently, but I have, been in the past, in the recent past, and I've been in and out of the online scene. Do I put widow in my profile? No, I don't, but I've thought, I go back and forth. I have thought about it, especially in the era of, like, a lot of people put, like, no kids, never married. And this kind of, like, if I do put it, will people be like, absolutely not? Or if I don't put it, will they be like, she's hiding that from me, right? And so it's this perception. Now, again, if I do put it and someone says absolutely not, like, I probably wouldn't want to meet you anyways if I'm just being transparent. Like, if you don't want, I guess it's better that and then you're like, no. But I also think it's doing me a disservice because it's not giving you a chance to get to know me. It would be judging a book by the cover, right? And there's so many ways in which I can sit here and say, like, I think being a widow makes me who I am. And a lot of people would say, oh my gosh, baggage or broken. And for a lot of my dating experiences, I thought that as well. And we can talk about that. But I think it's what makes me beautiful. And so, I think someone could potentially miss out if they were to judge me based off of me saying I'm a widow. And they're like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. Like, that's going to be too much. But I don't put it, and maybe dating apps should have an option where, like, we say, like, single, divorced, widow,
Oh, I just assumed that they did for some reason.
Do they?
I don't know the answer to that.
I actually think, now
if
that
they
I'm
don't, they
here,
should.
I mean, if hopefully we're single, right? Like, hopefully one would
well, you never know these days, right?
questionable.
So it's not on your profile, but how do you decide when to disclose this to the people you're dating, and how do you do that?
I'm going to say they decide. They decide by the questions that they ask me. No. So that is so valid. And, like, it's just really nice to sit here with someone that's actually thinking about these questions, because I don't think I've ever had anyone ask me this. For me, it's been a process of trial and error, of learning. I think part of that title, widow, like, it makes you think about how people are going to react. Okay, so for anyone that's gone through something heavy or big, or they feel like it's going to elicit a response from someone else, that's always something that you think about. Because if I share it, then the person responding to me is going to have feelings about it, and guess whose job it is to manage those reactions? It's mine. It's my job.
Well, that's a whole thing to unpack. Are you saying that you believe that that should be a role that you take on, or are you saying that in practice that is just something that you've had to do?
I think both. I tend to think that when people go through hard things, then they become the person that has to communicate those things. And inevitably, that means that they also have to manage the reactions of the people around them. Do I see a shift in that changing? Probably not. Because it makes sense that it would fall on that person, right? But what can shift is people being aware of their reactions and how they make people feel. So if you were to kind of go back to use your question as an example, if I'm talking with someone, I share my story in whatever way I've decided to, which we'll talk about how I bring that up. People's responses tell you a lot. Okay. And what I don't want, the last thing I want to feel as a widow, and especially from someone I'm pursuing in a dating relationship, is pity. But it tends to be a reflection of how they've dealt with their own stuff that they've been through, right? Like if they have the emotional capacity to respond, to handle it, even outside of dating, just even friendships or people that when I tell, right, the response can be telling and you can learn a lot from that. So what I don't want to feel is pity. And what I end up a lot of times feeling is like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, and like sometimes I'm just like, it's okay. I understand. And it's hard even to say that out loud because I know their intentions are good and it's coming from a good place. And what is the right thing to say, right? What is the right thing? Really, the most appropriate thing is like, I don't have words probably, or it's definitely not, you're so strong. It's definitely not, kind of, a lot of times people's emotions about grief and hard things kind of come out too when you tell about yours. So it can be a little bit of a learning point, but it inevitably becomes mine to hold, right?
Your grief, or are you saying when they share their grief?
Their reaction, not necessarily them sharing their grief, but their reaction becomes my thing to manage or to make them like, oh, it's okay, right? Like I have to respond and I have to then be on my toes for their response to my story. Yeah. Does that?
It makes sense. I'm not a therapist, so.
Same. Also to clarify, same. It's just that as a non-therapist widow, sometimes it can be, if you're not in the right headspace or you don't have the capacity or, you just don't feel like it that day. Like sometimes telling people about it because there's questions or there's reactions or emotions, and like I just don't want to handle it that day.
Yeah. And that was going to be, or that's where my head is going, which is maybe it's not your burden to handle their reaction. I kind of wonder if they should take that information however they're going to take it and they're going to react, and you don't have to do anything with that. That's their responsibility to process whatever they're going to process, and you guys just move on from there.
You're right.
I don't know if I'm not a therapist.
No, I appreciate that perspective. I think it's just the normal give and take where you feel almost like you need to say, oh, it's okay. Get in conversations. So to kind of get back to your original question of like, how do you bring it up? For me, it is so much a part of like who I am in my life and where my work and why I live here and my everyday, that what tends to happen and the way that I've determined or decided to bring it up is I'm not going to talk around it. So if someone were to ask me a question and the first thought in my head is like, oh, well, it's because I lost my husband or it's because something related to Tom passing, then I'm just going to say it because it's more energy for me to think about how do I word this to where I answer their question, but it doesn't really explain it because I'm talking around this big thing in my life. So I have just told myself I'm just going to do it. And whether that's the first date or the third date, I think the other thing, kind of like the widow and dating profile, is sometimes if it's the first date, people could leave saying, oh my gosh, she overshared. That's too much. Like, why would she? That's so much on the first date. I don't even know you. Why would you share that? Because now that's what happens, right? We leave dates and we overthink and we like, oh, they did this one thing. And
you're exactly right.
Yeah. So if I share it on the first date, is it too soon? If I wait till the third date, then it's like, oh, well, she hid that from me.
Yeah, it's so hard, it sounds like, to thread that needle. Can you give me an example of a question that a guy might ask you on the date where you would then share?
Yeah, one example is, the basics of like, why Austin or why Denver or what is your job? So I'm an oncology pharmacist, and I also teach pharmacy students. So a lot of the answers to those why Denver was because Tom passed away and I needed to get out of I just needed a change of scenery, right? And so I went there. A lot of times what comes up in dating is like my perspective on work and life and what's important and what I value and how I want to spend my time, and the lack of control we have over our time and how we spend our time. We think that, oh yeah, I'll do all this when I retire, or I'll do all of this later. And the lie that we've been fed is that is in our control, and it isn't. It isn't. And now, given you can exercise, you can take care of yourself, right? There are things you can do to help, but ultimately, that is not in our control. And so I approach life very differently. I might spend a little extra money. I love shared experiences. I want to live my life and not think later like, oh, I wish I would have done that. And so that tends to be how it comes up, is if I have this kind of perspective. A lot of times people will say, how did you come to that realization? Or, you seem young to have come to that realization. Like, how did that happen? And that's my answer. My answer is Tom and life and all these things I believed about life to be true, of like, I have so much time and we have later and we can put things off. Those aren't true.
Once these men find out, are there assumptions that they make about you?
I can't answer that, I guess.
Okay.
I think we should have... no, I'm just kidding.
Oh, we should interview all the men. Have them come on.
I'm sure there are. And, am I guilty of making assumptions about men unrelated to them, if they're not a widow or not? Yeah, we all make assumptions about each other. I'm sure there are assumptions. So my friends are incredible. And on death, I like to celebrate death anniversary days and Tom's birthday. I call them life days. And it's just a reminder to, get out there and live, because he can't, right? And so and in dating, I have expressed to people I've seen, hey, it's important, these days are important to me. It would be important to me if you remember them too. Or I just don't want to be stuck in the house, right? I just want something to do. I want to go out and do something. And I think one assumption that has come up before is I would go out to eat with one of my best friends, and I think it was a wedding anniversary day, because that's another one, right? Wedding anniversary. So there's all these days throughout the year. And she was like, hey, I made a reservation on that day for us. I was like, perfect. So it's just me and her. I think an assumption that's been made is that I go and I'm sad and cry. I go to dinner and I just talk to her about Tom, or reminisce, or I'm sad. We barely talk about that, right? It's not just sadness all the time. I'm just going out to live life. And if I would love a partner to do that with me, and someone that could be able to hold it and say, oh, it's the death anniversary day. Let's go to dinner and just live. I don't need to go and cry and be sad about Tom, but just to acknowledge that this is a day for someone that was really important for me. Let's go out and live life and just honor this life that was, and this part of you that was, and not take away from, it doesn't take away from our relationship, right? And so that's an assumption. I think I am sure there's been more. I do think people generally think I'm more sad all the time than I am. I think there's definitely parts of me that are sad, or I have my moments, but I think people think there's been stories of people saying like, you should be over it by now, or just get over it, or
people you've dated or friends or.
Yeah, I think I've experienced that. Some like people just not understanding or having the capacity to understand, or that's just how they view grief, and and I can't judge that, right? That is not, everyone's experience is different. Maybe their view is to just feel it and move on. It doesn't work like that for me, and it's not gonna ever work like that for me. Like I believe it's something I've integrated into my life, and there's definitely been moments where it's been more consuming, and now I feel like it's less consuming as I've like rebuilt my life around it, but it's not going anywhere. It's in my day-to-day to the point where I still get mail for Tom, right? Like how is it possible for me to move on when I would never be here in Austin, probably, if it wasn't for losing him? Right? I would still be in Kentucky more than likely. And there's a quote from an author I love, and it's, "Everything I have now is built on everything that I've lost." And she was a widow as well. Nora McInerney was her name. And that is so true. And so it's so true of me. Like everything I have now, being on this podcast and my job and my life and my day-to-day and who I am, it's just like integral piece of me that I can't just get over it. And so I think that's been an assumption. I think there's an assumption that I'm making comparisons. Totally. I mean,
Absolutely.
Not totally that I am making comparisons, but totally you would think that. Right?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not making comparisons because I can't. I am such a different person on the other side that it is not possible. It would be the worst. I'm going to get scientific with you. It would be the worst designed randomized controlled trial ever.
I don't even understand that.
It would be the worst trial design ever because I'm too different. I'm not the same.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You can't compare apples to oranges.
Right.
Like I'm not the same. So how could I compare this relationship to that? I can't. I can't. And I'm such a different person. And just contextually, we kind of already talked about this. Like the world is so different. Like talking about attachment styles and things, like the things in relationships are very different too. We didn't talk about our feelings then. We didn't talk about communication styles as much, or maybe we should have, but it just wasn't, you can't compare.
Right.
You can't.
So that's interesting because you are such a different person now. Are there things that you're looking for in a relationship or in a partner that you weren't looking for at 19 or 21?
For sure. And I think, you asked me that as a widow sitting on your couch talking to you about dating as a widow, but like that is not just a widow specific question. And I think if I could emphasize anything out of this, it's like, don't treat me different because I'm a widow, right?
Yeah.
And it's just the same. It's not, I know that people are like, oh my gosh, widow, like that's huge. Oh my gosh, but I'm just a human. And as humans, we've all experienced loss and we've all experienced relationships that ended, whether that's divorce or breakups or whatever. And like, yes, mine just happened to end in death and it wasn't a choice. But we've all had moments of growth, and I think hopefully we use dating as an avenue to explore the things that we're looking for in a partner. And if someone were to answer the question of like, is what I'm looking for at 35 this different than, if they were to say no, it's not different, I would have concerns.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would have concerns. But yeah, it's absolutely different. I have had to rebuild my life. Dating and getting married so young, that was my life. And that was all I knew. And he was a little bit older than me and kind of took on some of those like more caregiver and the admin because I was in school. I was in, and it was like, oh, well, this will be later. And so I had to relearn everything. Not only just roles and tasks and dishes and laundry and things that he took care of, financial things, right? But also I had to relearn myself, like who I was.
Yeah.
And I lost it. I lost who I was. as anyone I think would if their partner passes away, right? I can't fully be who I am without like that piece of me. And, I had to redefine it and rebuild it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let me ask this first. Do men treat you differently when you're actually dating them?
Because I'm a widow?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
Because I've never dated not being a widow. How would I compare it?
Yeah. So this is a big assumption, and I'm asking because I want to see if there's a shred of truth in this. I would guess that there are some men who want to take care of you because they envision that you are fragile. And so they treat you like you're fragile. Do you get a sense of that at all, or is that not really the case?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I think because I have had to rebuild and take care of myself, then that tends to be how I've shown up in relationships, is the person that's over taken care of or over giving or over caring, or I think it's a product of my own also need for control. And that's something that if I look back, like right after Tom passed, like I was a little bit more reactive. I didn't like things that caught me off guard. I needed control. I needed predictability. I didn't like things that changed because I think it was just needing that stability and kind of like what I could predict. It's gotten better through a lot of therapy and a lot of growth. But I've had to really sit with myself of like, why am I tending to overgive? Why can't I let someone take care of me? And one of the biggest questions, I didn't think we would talk about this, is, I've had friends that have said, do you think that you are doing that because you're so scared to let go for someone to take care of you because you might lose them again? Is the underlying fear of, if I overgive, if I provide, if I care for him, I'm in control, and then I lose someone, it's not that risky to me. If I am fully vulnerable and fully like being taken care of and fully letting my guard down, then that's a bigger hurt for me. Now, all that to say, I have been very hurt when relationships... It's not that I haven't felt bad or been sad when relationships end, but it's more risky when you're completely exposed and you're letting yourself be vulnerable. And have I, whether consciously or subconsciously, been kind of doing all of it to protect myself is like something I'm still trying to work through.
That makes total sense to me. Theoretically.
Yeah.
No. This next question, not like that makes sense to me theoretically. That makes sense to me practically.
That's so funny.
Theoretically, if you could paint a picture of how you would want a partner to show up for you and to support you, what would that look like?
That's such a great question. And I think about this a lot because I try to communicate what I want or need in the moment. The problem is that I don't always know what I want or need in the moment. And that's a bigger problem with grief, right? Is that people just want to help, they want to be there, but like oftentimes the griever or the person going through it they don't know what they need in the moment. And so if I were to give you like practical answers to that question, one is the best responses, like the first response is for someone to say, what's his name? What was his name? I try to do that in my day-to-day life, even in just in relationships in general. If someone's had loss or someone's in the hospital, I want to know what's their name, right? Like, let's humanize them. Let's start there. So that always makes me feel really comfortable, and it's a green flag for me. Another question that I've actually gotten recently on a date is someone said, what do you do on the days? Like, what do you do to celebrate, or do you do anything special on the days that are important?
Wow.
And I almost started crying because that's been I've had that as an ask in people that I've dated, and I've had all across the spectrum. I've had people say, absolutely not. I'm not remembering that. Like, why would I remember that? And then I've had people that do it. And then I've had friends that are like, well, I'll do it like, I'll put it in my calendar, right?
Yeah.
Because what happens is there's a lot more communication when he passed, like those years after. And then now we're 8 years after, and people don't know as much. And so to have someone on a date ask me what I did on those days, I was like, whoa, like, what have you gone through? Like, in my head, I'm like, have you gone through something? And you get it, right? And so that's a really great way to show up for someone, is just to know you don't even have to do things with that person on the day, but just to know it's the day and to anticipate, like, that I might be different, or I don't know how I'm going to show up on that day, but my partner knows that I'm going through that. And bonus, if they want to take me to dinner or do something crazy to celebrate that we're alive.
Yeah.
And so that's a really, really good thing that I've experienced. I think, like, on the day-to-day, though, the hard part for me is moments where things catch me off guard. Like, I'll be sad on, like, Easter or, like, Halloween, because I scroll Instagram and I see families and kids, and I'm like, it's not a normal holiday that you would think Christmas makes sense, Thanksgiving makes sense, but it's these little moments that, like, catch you off guard, that you're like, wow, that was supposed to be my life. And those are the kind of unpredictable moments in a dynamic, because it's like I want to tell my partner about it, but also it can be a tricky situation because I'm just sad, and it's like not their fault.
Right.
It's sad unrelated to them, but is the expectation, should it be that they comfort me? Like, how do you navigate that? And so the way I communicate it to people is I say, hey, I don't know how I'm going to be. I don't always know how I'm going to be. And also, every relationship is different, and what we bring out of the other person, what we trigger or mirror, is different. And so, this is uncharted territory, right? As it is for anyone.
Sure.
When you're dating someone, right? But I just kind of like to say, like, hey, I don't know, but I'll try to talk to you about it, like, when I do know, or if there's something specific that I feel like you can do, I'll try to let you know. But I don't always know, so how can I tell you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, like you said, that's relationships too. We don't always know what to tell our partner to do for us, or what we need in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want your partner to ask questions about Tom and learn about him?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And I again, it kind of goes back to Tom saying, like, I don't know if I would be the same if the roles were reversed. Like, sometimes I try to put myself in their shoes of, like, how would this feel? But I think for me, like, if I'm dating someone, I think so much that has maybe been through a relationship loss or something like that. Like, I don't mind to hear about those things. I know that when you're in a relationship with someone, you have shared experiences and love and parts of you have learned and grown. And, like, that's not going away. Like, we're a product of the people that we spent time with. And it is unrealistic for me to think that once you're not with someone that all the love you had for them just disappears, or the things you shared together, the experiences you shared. And so if I can hold space for that in people that I've dated, how can they also not do that for me? Just because I'm a widow and like, he passed away, that's too much, right?
Right.
Like, do we do a good job for that in general with each other in terms of the relationships that we've been through?
I think we could do a lot better generally.
I think we could. Like, they don't exist in a silo, right? Like, going to places you've been with someone else before, you're going to think of them. It would be unrealistic or unreasonable to think that you won't.
Yeah.
And that doesn't change anything about the present or who you are with me today. And it's the same thing, right? I would love someone to be curious about Tom, to ask questions, to understand, to try to, there's no way they will possibly understand what I went through, but to just try to understand as best they can. I've met friendships that didn't know Tom, that know my story, and that are able to sit with, like, to see it, to see me, and I feel really understood and seen, even though they didn't. Like, sometimes it'll catch me off guard because I think, oh wow, wait, they actually didn't know me during that time, but they show up for me so well. So if a friend can do it, then I think a partner can do it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that it requires someone who's very secure in themselves.
Yeah.
I think that if someone's insecure, there would be this fear of comparison, or that just because you're still grieving this other person, which will always, it sounds like will always be present to an extent, and that you still love this other person, they would need to realize that that doesn't diminish your love for them. Nope. You can hold space for both. And I think that it takes a very secure person and a very mature person to understand that. But I believe it's out there. And I mean, from what I've heard in the widow community, because I listen to some podcasts and things, like there are definitely those guys out there who can hold space for both.
Yeah, and I think on my end, it would be unreasonable for me to just think someone will just do it and be perfect at it, right? That it's not a dance, that it's not something to learn, it's not something that they would have to sit with. And like, but in the past, I've tried to share books or like podcasts, even a podcast. I know a book is a commitment, right? But even like, oh, this podcast episode really, like, it was helpful to me in my grief, and I think it would help you understand my perspective. Like, maybe I'm not doing the best at communicating it. Let me give you a podcast that really spoke to me so that you can get it. I don't think they were ever listened to, right? I don't think that it was ever I would love someone to say, how can I help me understand? Is there something we could read together? Is there something we could do to understand this huge part of you?
Yeah. Do you have a book recommendation or a podcast recommendation that you can fire off for people right now?
It's not a podcast per se, but it was Unlocking Us with Brene Brown and David Kessler about grief. And it was actually about grief in the COVID pandemic. And I use the word grief. I know we're talking about being a widow, but I think it's so entwined together. Like, what I went through is grief.
Absolutely.
Like the death of a husband, but like loss is grief. And so this was a podcast that came out during COVID. It was the COVID pandemic where they actually talked about collective grief. So weirdly, during COVID, I actually felt fine. And everyone, fine is an exaggeration.
I'm with you.
Yeah. But you know, Tom passed away in 2017. COVID was 2020. I was kind of like, I'm good. Like but around me, everyone else was grieving. It was loss, the loss of normalcy, the loss of their day-to-day life, the loss of events, or, I think South by got canceled that year, right? Like the things that they had planned, and that was grief. And I was like, I know this. Like, I'm good. Everyone else, like everyone is now... I feel normal because this is like what I've been sitting with is this loss. But that podcast, it does such a good job of talking about grief as loss and the expectations we place on grief, and like my grief is different from your grief, and kind of how we show up for each other and like love through it. So highly recommend that episode. Brene Brown, David Kessler on grief and finding meaning in grief is, I think, what it's called. And then books, anything by Nora McInerney. She is a public speaker. She has a podcast called Terrible Thanks for Asking, which is where people talk about the hard things they're going through. It's like, how are you today? Terrible. Thanks for asking. But her books, she had one called No Happy Endings and Laughing is Cool, and then in parentheses, Crying is Cool Too, or something like that. And she's their memoirs and her personal stories of like navigating her husband passing away, her father dying, and having a miscarriage, all within like the span of a short amount of time.
Jeez.
And that was all that I had to rely on, being a 27-year-old in small town Kentucky, of like, I needed to read and learn. I needed to read accounts of other people experiencing it so I could validate what I was experiencing because I didn't have someone I could turn to that just got it.
Right. Yeah. So at that time, were there communities that you could reach out to? Were there people that had gone through similar experiences that you could talk to?
I didn't find any. I sought out therapy, but I feel like even in therapy, some of the responses I got were like, oh, well, you're generally a lot older. And I think there was one night that I went to a like young adult support group, like widows, and I showed up and I was late, but like, if you know me, not abnormal. I was late, but I went to walk in and no one was there.
Really?
And so I cried all the way home because I just felt, and it was like effort for me to get ready and to try to like get myself to go.
Yeah.
And I went and no one was there. And I don't know if no one showed up or it got canceled and I just didn't know about it. But what it did was it just left me feeling more isolated and alone.
Right.
And, all I felt like I had to turn to at the time were books. And I'm sure there's probably things that existed, maybe some online. I do think collectively we have a better job of that now, of having kind of those community spaces or places you can get resources. But yeah, at the time I didn't have them or know them. And so like I turned to books to help.
So knowing what you know now about the experience, what would you tell your 27-year-old self, advice-wise?
About the experience of dating?
Ooh, that's
Or
not where I was
like-
going, but yes,
No,
that.
let's do the other one.
I want to go down both tracks. So let the first track being with grief. What advice would you give your 27-year-old self about how to handle the situation that you were in?
I don't know if it's advice, but I would just say forgive yourself. Like, don't judge yourself for what you're doing to just get through the day. Just realize that it's your body's way of like protecting you and functioning and allowing you to function and to survive, and don't feel bad about it. I honestly, you say that, what would you tell your 27-year-old self? I tell myself that a lot. Like I said,
Good.
I do. I tell myself that, but it took me a while to get there. And, the more I've read, the more I see, the more I hear, the more I'm like, oh, wow. Like my experience, that's normal. That feeling's normal. That thought was normal. The thought of like wishing he would pass sooner because it was just a waiting game, right? Like that, you feel awful saying that out loud, that guilt. The thought of like trying to do things for the first time after that. There's this term now that I've learned in the grief space is like secondary losses. And so, right now, a secondary loss that you could say that I have is that I thought I would have kids right by now. Okay. So that I have that as it's not losing Tom, but it's because I lost Tom that I don't have that life. And so those come all the time. That's one that's been currently prevalent for me, like to be very transparent in the recent years-ish. But I had to navigate those, and like those are normal too. And everyone says the grief comes in waves, right? I didn't mean to roll my eyes because it does come in waves, but it just feels cliche. Or like time, it just takes time, right? Time heals all wounds, and just time. I agree with both of those things. They're not wrong, but I think I've had to learn grief integration, and like closer to the time of his death, grief was if I had a bubble, grief was all of it. Okay. And then like the further you get away, the bubble of grief gets smaller. I would just tell myself it's normal to feel like you're drowning, and then like you're not gonna forget, and it's gonna be a part of who you are, and hopefully a part of your next relationship that they can that can be held and loved and comforted. And I don't expect that partner to fix me. And that was something like early on, I think I did. I think I expected dating someone to be like, make me happy. I'm sad, make me happy. Or fix this part of me. Or here you go. And I presented it that way.
Really?
I think early on, I presented it as baggage or as a broken piece of me, or yeah, I think I did. I think I was like, can you handle this? You know, and now I'm like, no, like, this is a part of me. I don't expect you to fix it. I don't expect you to, like, you don't need to make me happy. I can do that, but I do want you to hold it, or be able to hold me holding it.
Well said. Hold me holding it.
Yeah.
That's so good. And I think that applies more broadly.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, we can't expect our partner to just fix these pieces of us, including attachment style and all of these things. We have responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah.
And of course, like, we want our partner to hold space for us and support us. But I love what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good point. And if, people are going to be like, oh, widowed and dating, I don't need to listen to that one, right? Like, I'm not a widow, or that's not common. But I think you bring up such a good point that it's not just a widow that says, hold me holding that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That there's also death, and like, parents have passed, siblings, dogs, like, death is a part of life. Like, you don't get one without the other. And so there's grief and death, whether it's a relation, like a spouse or a partner or a mom or dad, and like, the partner we choose is going to we're going to walk through that. Miscarriages, pregnancy loss, like, that is who you're picking as your person to walk you through all of those things that are inevitable, that we like to ignore, and we don't want to think about them, but they're inevitable. But also, like, we've all been through hard things, and like, divorce is loss, and breakups are loss, and a job loss, like getting fired, or I could talk to you about this all day. If you can't tell, I could talk to you about this all day, but we need to not stop trying to expect someone else to fix us, which I had to learn. Am I perfect at it? No. Do I still have moments where I'm like, fix me? Yeah, yes, of course. But we also need to, this is the bigger one, allow ourselves to be held in it. Mm-hmm. And that, honestly, I think that one's harder, and that's been my most recent lesson in dating, is like, kind of back to what we said earlier about, I was overgiving, overfixing, over kind of being in control. And some of that's probably the protection of thinking that if someone really saw what I felt on the inside, or the depths of the grief sometimes, that they can't hold it. And so I hold it in. I cry in the shower, which is exactly what I did when he was sick, right? Oh. Like, if I'm truly raw with it, that they'll run.
That'll be too much for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they don't, they can't understand or fix it, or just freak out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that fear.
But I think that's so true of all of us, widow or not widow.
Yeah.
Or
I think that's ubiquitous. Yeah. The fear of vulnerability. Brene Brown talks about that.
Yeah. That's a talk for a different day. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, very related, though.
Yeah.
Very related. All right, I want to go back to the second track, which was, what advice would you give your 27-year-old self about dating?
Oh my gosh. Be patient. This is such a good question, and I can't say that I've ever thought of it. Be patient, learn, recognize that you're doing it again for the first time in a very different body, a very different, who you are is different. The timeline and expectations are different. You also, like, as growing up, getting married young, you think about the man being the provider, and you think about kind of some of those more traditional roles. And like, now my life is so different from that. Like, I don't need that anymore, right? And so if you're not bringing value, if you're not adding to my life, so I would tell my younger self, like, make sure they're adding to your life and not taking away. And I wouldn't, right now, I would not put up with someone not being able to hold space for Tom. And I've had it all across the board. I've had people that I thought they could initially, and then, like, toward the end, it was almost weaponized against me of like, well, you still have things to work through. I absolutely do. Of course I do.
As we all do.
As we all do. But of course, especially like having a husband that's passed, of course I have things, but it also brings up things to work through together in relationship. But I've had, kind of thinking someone could hold it and then learning that they couldn't. I've had people that clearly just can't. And for some reason, I'm like, oh, well, it'll be fine. Maybe they'll learn someday when they lose someone what I mean, right? Mm-hmm. But all these other things are good. So, like, that's fine. I'll just diminish that part of myself. Mm-hmm. I've had it all across the board. And I would tell myself, don't compromise that standard. That is the most important thing. Kind of in hindsight, I think that all the people that I've dated, they love me because of it. Right? They fell in love with me because of how I view life and how I live and how I choose to live and all of those things that are because of losing Tom is created the person, and that's why they love me. Mm-hmm. And so to think someone can love me for them and then not accept it or sit with me in it, I'm not going to do that anymore. Like, you don't get one without the other. And to even to go as far as to say, like, honor Tom for, like, the role that he played in my life in helping me be this person that they could love. And I've spent too much time wasting time. Mm-hmm. And that's mean, not wasting time. But, I've spent too much time kind of saying, oh, well, maybe they'll understand.
Yeah, I'm with you. Are you finding that the partners who have been better able to hold that space have had some level of loss in their life?
I haven't made an Excel sheet. Like Tom, maybe I should. I haven't made an Excel sheet. If I'm just to sit here and think, yes. Yes. I think that's, and I have like a, as we all do, like our list, but like on my list is like, has experienced loss, or has understands, has the capacity. Because I don't know that I would have had those thoughts or been able to sit with it if I hadn't experienced it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the inevitable truth is that if you haven't, you're going to.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So might as well get, go ahead and think about it, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people avoid, even the concept of death. I was a probate lawyer in my previous life.
Know all about that.
I know all about people avoiding making wills and
no,
the repercussions.
One of my friends said once, if you drive on I-35, like, you should. And that sounds awful and morbid, and like people are like, but like, why is that our reaction? It's so true.
Yeah.
We could, like, it's so true.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I love your perspective on life, because it is so true. By facing our mortality, it really makes us view our present moment differently.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Okay, as we wrap this up, I have a question that I'd like to end the podcast with, which is, what is something that people don't generally learn about you until they really get to know you?
Oh, me? Mm-hmm. You didn't prep me for this one. I should have listened to the podcast. Okay, there's a few. One is that, I think I'm not always the most forthcoming with my job. So I'm a professor, and I'm a professor that's interested in grief and kind of some of the soft skills. And so, I teach college students about pharmacy, but then we also talk about grief and end of life and vulnerability and some of those things that I didn't learn until it was kind of forced upon me. And that I feel like in healthcare especially, we go through all of that, and so we should work harder or try to include it more in our education for students. And so I take all the things we've talked about today, and I also talk to students about them, because I think when we're in the healthcare field, it's necessary. And it's not just to my experience of losing a family member, but also just the bigger concept of loss and death and end of life and everything. So I'm not always the most forthcoming about, I'm a clinical assistant professor. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of, I don't know. It feels weird sometimes to say. I can't believe I am. I thought it was like a way longer, like I would be a lot older before I said that.
Oh, it sounds so grown up.
Yeah, or maybe I am old and I just refuse to accept it.
No.
But then the other thing I would say is one I've already said is that I'm always late.
Yeah.
That's pretty, my friend, I mean, if you know me and you're in my life, like it's never about your time, not respecting your time. It's always on my end. Like, oh, I have this much time. Oh, I can do these things. Oh, it only take me this long to get
maximizer.
Yeah, it's about time optimization, and I'm not good at it. And then the other thing is that I do a little bit of everything. But then I never finish it.
Okay.
So like if you're at hobbies, like at gardening, I have a watercolor set. I dabbled it in high rocks for a minute. I just took a pottery class, right? And then like I don't know if I'll do it again, but like I will try things, and I'm trying to learn and find things that I love. But I like to kind of start them and then maybe just like change my mind and do something else.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Nice.
Jack of all trades, master of none. Actually, so fitting that Tom used to say that about himself.
Oh, no way.
Jack of all trades. Yeah. So fitting that you said that. And it's a good way to close out.
That's a great way to end the podcast.
Yeah. Very surreal.